So it is my pleasure to welcome our next speakers up for our Fireside Chat, Maximizing the Impact of CDER-led Efforts for Clinical Trial Modernization while Retaining Scientific and Clinical Rigor. So welcome.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. Anywhere is fine. Yes, thank you. All right. So we're going to keep connecting dots. And you saw the opening conversation, then the impressive panel on disease staging. But at the end of the day, under your leadership, CDER has embarked on some really exciting initiatives to modernize and innovate in clinical trial design, execution, and interpretation. But also in how you get to a clinical trial and the translational science components of optimizing that aspect as well. And to that end, CDER has established some pretty exciting centers of excellence and some initiatives that I would like you to share with the audience. Sure,
very, very happy to do so. So, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Over the past couple of years, we have been really thinking on how we can continue to strengthen our review programs by creating or by putting in place some programs that cut across all of the divisions. So CDER has 28 divisions. All of those divisions, for instance, pretty much most of them will review rare disease programs, for instance. And so because CDER is so big, it's really, it's important to spend, we need to spend more time than smaller centers in sort of making sure that there is the connective tissue, right, and that it's strong. And so we have identified 3 areas. The first one is clinical trial innovation, and so we have put in place the Clinical Trial Innovation Program, or CT3I, that is going to look at 4 areas, and this is a pitch here. We are soliciting pilots, demonstration cases. We have an FRN out there, so we're really looking for substrate. The first area is the pragmatic point-of-care clinical trials and design, working with researchers or sponsors to design pragmatic clinical trials that are sort of fit for purpose without things that are not necessarily added value, and also building a quality program into the protocol designs, identifying the critical elements of quality, so that we can also focus then on those critical elements of quality all the way through the pre-inspections, rather than nitpicking on a whole bunch of things that are probably not really important. The second one is about statistical methods. So we have a work stream that would like to engage with a sponsor around patient designs for clinical trials. And the other area, as I mentioned, is a work stream that actually includes compliance and the inspectorate as well, to work together to develop a quality plan for clinical trials, in particularly pragmatic point-of-care clinical trials, and using that quality plan to then guide not only protocol designs, but also data collection and inspections. And the last one, which may be of probably even greater interest, is that we're recognizing that the regulatory framework is no longer fit for purpose, and that 1970s or 1980s regulations are really no longer adequate to support how clinical trials are executed and conducted right now. The second initiative is the Quantitative Medicine Center of Excellence. We launched this in April. Why did we do this? Well, modeling modeling-informed drug development is going to be more and more important as we go forward. Actually, this example of drugs that, for rare diseases that we have approved, based on, after work that was done by our modelers to, identify some potential opportunities. And so we decided to create this Center of Excellence to bring together all of the sort of expertise across CDER, which is considerable. Remember, the Model-Informed Drug Development Program was started, many years ago, and to really turbocharge the work that we do around Model-Informed Drug Development. Why? Because more and more, particularly in rare diseases, we're seeing situations where we have to be able to interpret the data in a way that takes multiple types of data into considerations. And this is where modeling really helps us to really look at the totality of the data and see whether we can identify sort of some threads that we can pull. And last but not least, we're continuing to build out the CDER rare disease program, which was, has been in place for many, many years. About a couple of years ago, we've sort of formalized it by launching the ARC program. And within that program, I want to highlight two initiatives. The first one is the establishment of a translational science team. This team is a team of experts that actually helps the divisions in situations where there is some work to do, as hopefully, ideally, as early as possible in the development program, to identify or characterize potentially sort of promising surrogate endpoints or biomarkers. And so this team is a team that sort of sits across all of the divisions and is brought to bear and comes in when there are sort of these types of problems. And our goal is to expand it. They've already worked on, I think, over 10 programs. These are live programs. These are not look-backs, okay? So they're actually active. Obviously, we're limited by the resources that we have, but the feedback has been very positive right now. And last but not least, also within our rare disease program, we have launched a statistical sort of methodology team that also is there for consultations for the review teams when sponsors come in with complex or novel approaches, including real-world evidence, Bayesian designs, external controls, and all of that. And this is a team that is populated by experts in Bayesian statistics, including one academician who is working under a program that we have in government, one of the most prominent Bayesian statisticians. We have this program where we can actually have academicians come and work with us for, part-time. So lots going on. It's very exciting, and we'll have even more work now that we have established the Rare Disease Hub.
No, that's fantastic, because that's an illustration of the vision that brings these together, because that really helps connect the dots. And so one thing that we see as particularly valuable and exciting is how, with the divisions focusing their centers and cross-cutting matrix groups, helping out with the methods and connect the dots across what is seen in an innovation in a particular indication and how that can help another indication. Is that part of the vision to also include how public-private partnerships can contribute to that connectivity of the dots?
Well, absolutely, and I think that this meeting is a really good example. There are some themes that are very much cross-cutting, particularly in rare diseases, where we know that the complex areas are surrogate endpoint, biomarkers, clinical trial design, use of external control arms, and so on. And so, taking this sort of cross-cutting approach and having meetings such as this one that allow us to actually discuss and exchange information and best practices in a way that is sort of thematic, right? I think that this is really a very good example. And obviously, in rare diseases, we're doing a lot of work with CPATH, and that also allows us to take a more sort of rare disease-focused approach. Obviously, we would like to do more, but sort of we're always constrained by resources. So.
Yeah, and that's also part of how we can help connect the dots and be advocates for the agency to get the support it needs in resources, and that means not just funds but people. And you'd be surprised at how many people would like to join the agency, but they don't necessarily have the avenues to recognize the openings that are there. So that speaks to one thing that Rob Caleb was mentioning in the beginning of the first session: communication and making sure that we leverage those opportunities. How do you see the centers also becoming, the centers of excellence becoming an attraction for people that may have a very bright future in an agency like FDA, but where they don't necessarily need to be like reviewers per se?
Yeah, I think that certainly there are opportunities. I would say that having a review background is very useful. I don't have review background on the sort of regulatory side, but I prepared, I built the applications in many lives ago. I put together the applications that then went into to FDA. So having that in the trench experience, either from the regulatory side or the industry side, is actually very helpful. And there are two sides of a medal, right? And so, but there also, I think it's important to recognize that not all jobs at FDA are reviewer jobs, right? And so, and more, we're really very interested in scientists, communicators. Okay, why? Because we recognize the need for greater bidirectional communication with the communities, particularly the rare disease communities, but all sort of patient communities and advocacy groups. And for effective communication and useful communication to take place, there really needs to be a translation of the science. We really need to have individuals who are able to translate the science in ways that it sort of is, and then communicate what we're doing to the broader public. And so, if you ever have any questions as to what how to come to FDA or CDER, don't be shy. I'm only an email away. We're always recruiting, and I can tell you that it's the best place I've ever worked in, and I've worked in a lot of good places, but this one is the best job ever.
And we greatly
With the
appreciate.
Best colleagues ever. Some of them are over here.
But we greatly appreciate the public health responsibility that you guys have at the FDA. In the 2 minutes that we have left, where do you see those centers being successful in the next 5 to 10 years?
Talk with sort of the programs in?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the programs that we're launching, and I'm going to throw also to mention also the Rare Disease Hub, which is going to be sort of straddling across our CDER and CBER, and obviously the rare disease programs within both centers are going to be foundational, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever we do above center needs to trickle down to the reviewers, or we're not going to affect change. And so over the next few years, I think we have to continue to expand the work that we do in these critical areas. Okay, we really have to identify what are the most critical themes and areas that we need to tackle in order to advance innovation. And that's what we're trying to do, with these initiatives. We're not just saying, oh, we just want to do innovation, come and tell us. We try to identify very specific areas that we know have been barriers historically. What we will need in order to sort of build out these programs further is more resources. So right now we are running all of these programs, including, the budding, the initial work to stand up the rare disease hub without incremental resources. So we're all sort of pulling from the programs, including, starting with Dr. Marks and I, and sort of doing double duty. We are essentially having to borrow time from reviewers, from office directors, from division directors. Well, of course, you understand the tension that, we also need to make sure that we review the applications, and we cannot sort of slow that down. And so ultimately, we will have to think about sustainability or how to, the kind of resources that may need to be brought to bear to advance these sort of cross-cutting programs. And I'm not talking about sort of the review divisions, but more these sort of the connective tissue programs.
Yeah, and that would be fantastic to help materialize that vision through the help that we can provide through public-private partnerships. Dr. Cavazzoni, thank you so much. This concludes our very quick chat.
It's a pleasure.
We greatly appreciate you coming to join us. And now I'm going to pass it on to my good colleague, Cheryl Kuhn, and she's going to lead the next panel.
Thank you
so much.